Hello and welcome to the show. The Volkswagen I.D has come to Forza Horizon 4, and if you are familiar with the world of motorsport, you will know this car has been going around and breaking as many records as it can. Pretty much, including the Pikes Peak record. It broke the Goodwood hill climb record. It beat, there's a Chinese hill climb stage as well. It thrashed. It went very, very quick around the Nürburgring. Not quite as fast as the Porsche, but very, very fast indeed. And regardless of whether you like electric cars or not, this is an incredible feat of engineering, an incredible feat of mechanics, if you like. And it has a very mighty wing, which does give it some bonus points in my book. Either way, we have now got the car to play around with in Forza, which is pretty damn neat. I have to say, it's always an interesting to have vehicles like this in Horizon 4, and naturally, as you would expect, the car is pretty damn mighty. PI-wise, it is at 998, so it's right basically at the very, very top of the vehicles. However, there is something to bear in mind. When it comes to a circuit such as the Asmore track here, it doesn't necessarily work all of that well. You see, the IDR is very, very quick when it comes to tight technical stuff. Top speed-wise, no, it isn't amazing. I could beat this car fairly straightforwardly at a track like this with a number of vehicles. Yes, this goes around a corner very fast, but it just doesn't have the top end between, I say low power, 670 horsepower compared to some vehicles that you will drive, and huge amounts of, I presume, aero limiting and gear limiting. It only does about 150 mile an hour down the straight, which is nothing for a max S2 class car. I mean, absolutely nothing really for the sort of vehicles when cars are doing 250 down there. You know, it could be beaten around this course without too much trouble, but of course that's not the point of the IDR, which got me thinking. I was going to see if I could beat it when it came to a hill climb stage, when it came to the Needle Pass. This is the stage that I have used for the hill climb build series that I did a little while back. The IDR was to get 3 runs going up this. This would be my third and final run, and this was the fastest run of the lot. And then I was going to take a variety of cars and see what it would take to beat the time set by the Volkswagen. Now, as you can imagine, this thing is all-wheel drive, immense sort of initial acceleration, but that's nothing compared to the grip. The speed that this car can take through the corners is absolutely boggles the mind. It is so very quick through here. The strange thing is as well, because it is all-wheel drive and has immense downforce, it actually doesn't feel as quick as it's going. It feels very understeer. It feels like it's struggling. I guess the way the balance of the car is, it tends to understeer, which works for me in terms of driving the vehicle. But it does tend to understeer. It does feel like sometimes you wish you could get the front end turned in a little bit more. And I will be honest, of 3 runs, while this was the fastest, I have to say it was probably not the quite cleanest run I could possibly manage with the car. I actually got a bit sideways across the grass at one point early on, but it's making up time with just immense acceleration, immense speed through these corners. And there was just one more turn to get the car slowed down for, get it turned in. Once it's sorted, boot it, a little bit of a slide from the vehicle, and then we are across the line. So, the target time for everything to try and beat would be a 1 minute 9.2. Now, I have to take off 2 minutes, just the way that we time trial with these, the way I get the race to work, etc. So, it's a 1 minute 9.2 to try and beat. So, our first contender that would go up against the IDR is a Ferrari. In fact, we have a lot of Italian cars for you today because Horizon mostly has track cars from Italy, it seems. Regardless, the 599XX Evolution. 740 horsepower in this one. Weighs 3,000 pounds. Is heavier. The IDR is a relatively light thing, of course, being built to pretty much no regulations, although to be fair, neither was this 599XX. There was little in the way of rules when this thing was done. Now, of course, this is rear-wheel drive. All the cars here that are being used are all run on race tyres. In fact, they all come with race tyres as standard. So they are all on as equal a playing field as they can get in terms of tyres. Now, rear-wheel drive, as I found out when we were building A-Class cars to run up here, does cost you a little bit of time. Now, I thought cars with enough grip, rear-wheel drive wouldn't be too much of a problem, and you've got to bear in mind these things here, while they have got quite a lot of power, they've still got massive race tyres and huge downforce. Yeah, we saw with the A-Class cars that all-wheel drive was helpful, so here I was expecting it to potentially, again, help the IDR. However, it doesn't feel, when you're driving, it doesn't feel like it's losing too much time. It doesn't feel like you're having to be super, super careful because the car has got so much traction coming out of these corners. But well, certainly the 599 is. The 599 is losing time around here. And it's a weird one because sort of sat driving each of the vehicles, you don't realise just how much. It's very difficult to explain, but the IDR makes lap speed and I have no idea how. As we come around the penultimate corner, the IDR is basically crossing the finish line. That's how far down the 599 is in standard, guys, to the Volkswagen. That's a big chunk. Remember, this is not a slow car. The normal 599XX is not a slow vehicle in the slightest. It's nearly 10 seconds down on the Volkswagen. That is a very, very big chunk of time for about 20 PI. Sticking with Ferrari, we have our next contender. Now, we do go for a rather older car. This one, in fact, the oldest vehicle in the field, made in 1996. It does have 750 horsepower in it, though. 10 more than the 599, surprisingly, but it doesn't have a huge amount of torque, only 380 torque. The thing is, though, it's light. Very, very light. At just 2,000 pounds, it is, I believe, the lightest car that will go up this course, and that is good. You want the vehicle to be light. At the end of the day, the Needle Pass is, of course, all about handling. Yes, okay, you need a little bit of power to accelerate off the line to get up some of the hills and so on, but that is very much secondary to grip. You need to be able to carry as much corner speed as possible because you are going to be in the corners near enough constantly up here. That's why the IDR goes very fast, well, despite not feeling immensely fast. Now, I'd hope that the F50, with its, well, incredible lightweight nature, might be able to do something a little better, a little bit more impressive. When we lose, there is a certain amount of time lost initially off the launch. If you saw the Ferrari here do a massive wheel spin, getting going, there is an element, there's a little bit of time lost from the rear-wheel drive cars getting going. You know, if there was maybe a second between these cars and the IDR, it might could explain it away as just, well, like all-wheel drive initial launch and so on. And this is a good car to drive. The F50 is a very, very nice car to drive around here. It does have some quite long gears, although it never really felt like it had a... I never really felt like there was a wrong gear at the wrong time. It felt like it worked. And to be honest, sometimes the long gears help, makes it a little easier to get on the power. But again, as we head up towards the final corner, the IDR's already crossed the finish line here. It's closer. The F50 does get closer in terms of a finishing time there. I think there was a 1:15. That's still 6 seconds down. That's still 6 seconds down on the IDR. An improvement, undoubtedly. So, we go next to the Maserati, the MC12 Corsa. And now, PI-wise, I didn't point out that the Ferrari is 992 in terms of PI, so it's only 6 down. The Maserati is 993, so these are very, very close in PI to the Volkswagen IDR. Maserati also 750 horsepower going on, 6 more in this than the F50, about 500 torque. Weight-wise, it is heavier than the F50 GT at 2,600 pounds, but it's still a pretty light car. In fact, it is pretty much identical, about 20 pounds difference between the... Oh, 40 pounds difference, sorry, but no, it was 20 pounds. I was correct. Normally, between the MC12 and the IDR, I'm reading numbers funny. That's a good sign. So, Maserati, I know it's a pretty damn good car in this game. I know the Maserati will work when it came out as one of the fastest cars in the game here. In standard, guys, though, I was curious to see what it would do, and I have to say I immediately liked the MC12. It suits the way I drive the vehicle. It kind of drives how I want it to. Even though there's 700 odd horsepower going through the rear wheels, it is, on the most part, pretty well behaved. But again, if you're looking at the mid-corner speeds, it's unbelievably fast. Of course it is. It's a full-on race car, but it isn't matching the IDR. It feels, in some ways, the balance on this is a little bit more neutral than you get from the IDR. It doesn't quite feel like it's understeer as much as that car, but it physically isn't carrying the corner speed. There is some smoke pouring off the tyres. A couple of occasions I think I was just chucking the car in very hard. There's a little bit of wheel spin as we go to fire it away from a corner. Again, you never really feel like you're losing all that much time, but over the course of the run it certainly adds up. And again, we're coming up towards the final corner and the IDR has already crossed the finish line. This was not looking great for the cars. The Maserati, I thought I got it under a 1:15. I hadn't quite. It was very, very close. But, yeah, that hadn't quite worked. But it was pretty damn fast. So, what else could we use to try and displace the Volkswagen. Well, we go back to Ferrari for another attempt. The FXXK. A nice modern Ferrari track car, this one. 1,036 horsepower going on in this vehicle. 2,800 pounds. It's a couple of £100 heavier than the Maserati, but we have 1,000 horsepower going through the rear wheels. And you'd hope it would have some sophisticated aero. I mean, nothing's going to have quite the aero of the IDR. That thing, I mean, and the IDR we have in this game is the Pikes Peak one that was running sort of max aero. I know certainly the one that we're running at Goodwood was running a lot lower aero. I don't quite know what they ran in the Chinese hill climb bit, but you know, you're going up against this massively winged beast, and well, if this thing is going, any of these cars are going to beat it. They've certainly got to match it through the corners. They might be able, they certainly get it on acceleration further on, but initial launch, I don't know whether they're even matching it, let alone when it comes to the course. But yeah, this car here will go up to way more speed than the IDR, but you never use it on this particular sort of stage. Again, as far as a vehicle to drive goes, the FXXK is pretty good. Don't really have any major complaints, and I have to say, for an awful lot of power trying to escape out of the rear wheels, it is pretty damn well, again, it is very well behaved. I did think I might have more trouble with some of these cars wanting to, I mean, I hoped they wouldn't, of course. Big slick tyres, plenty of downforce. Yeah, at times I'd wondered whether we might see a little bit more lariness from these vehicles, but this lot were pretty damn well contained. And as we come around the final quarter, though, it's no good for the FXX. It is not going to be close enough. Not going to be anywhere, can't say that, anywhere close. It's in the ballpark, but it's not up there with challenging the IDR. So, another unbelievably fast and rare track special, thoroughly crushed by a Volkswagen. The Lamborghini entrance for this, if you like. I was going to try something a little different here. So we've been trying rear-wheel drive track specials, pretty much. And while the Sesto Elemento is a track-only special, I don't know whether you might be able to convert it to road use, but initially at least intended as track-only special, this one is all-wheel drive. So we have got the traction off the line. We can go full throttle out of the corners with no fear of wheel spin in this vehicle. It is the least powerful car here at 571 horsepower, but it is very light. 2,200 pounds, only 200 pounds heavier than the F50 GT, and that's in an all-wheel drive car. So yeah, it's unbelievably light, and sure enough, as you would imagine, off the line, it is pretty damn good. It is quite a long way down in terms of PI, though. There is that. This is always going to be a little bit of an oddball. I was curious to see what sort of performance we would get from it, though, and it's 948 PI, so it's basically mid S2 class, while everything else is right at the very, very top. So, while not necessarily expecting this to challenge the IDR, it is technically kind of the closest, and I was curious to see about how the all-wheel drive would affect it and whatnot. Either way, I got incredibly lucky at managing to skim my way past the checkpoint. I have absolutely no idea how I managed to make that work. I probably shouldn't, let's be honest. Again, it's another very, very quick car. It's a very grippy car. It's quite a forgiving car if you happen to make mistakes. We're at 120 miles an hour in some of these corners, and that's a lot of speed on a very, very narrow, windy, twisty road. However, again, you can see the time, it is ebbing away. Now, it's not too bad for the Sesto, considering, again, how far it is down in terms of PI. It is not a bad time, but the IDR is already across the finish line now. It's going to be right in with the likes of the F50, in with the likes of the Maserati as we run towards the finish line. Loses a little bit out of the final corner in the end. A good showing from a car a long way down in terms of PI, but still nowhere near enough. Now, normally, if you need to beat something, the Ultima is where you go. If you need to beat in any way, shape or form, you go to the Ultima Evolution, because this thing is ridiculous. It's completely and utterly bonkers. 1,020 horsepower, 920 torque, and it weighs 2,100 pounds. That is an astronomical power-to-weight ratio. It is blindingly quick. Just about every supercar and hypercar will lose to the Ultima. But here's the thing, we're not driving it on a normal track. In fact, on a normal track, this could probably beat the IDR by virtue of its unbelievable acceleration. However, here, it needs to have grip. And while the Ultima is very good, at the end of the day, credit to the vehicle, it is surprisingly drivable for what is a completely and utterly mad machine. On a course like this, I was always dubious, shall we say, that the car would have enough grip, would have enough composure to chase after the Volkswagen. At the end of the day, while, yes, it is very, very quick, it's not a track car, this one. It won't have the downforce that we've got from the ID, from the Maserati, from the Ferraris and so on. It just simply doesn't have that. It makes up for it in some regards in sheer acceleration, but we can't use that here. Yes, we can use it down this section. We're doing 135 miles an hour, but it's only for the very, very briefest of seconds. Yes, we're 10 miles an hour faster than the Sesto, but I have to be a lot more careful getting on the power with this car. And this is the one that you do struggle the most with trying to get out of the corners as you look up at the time. It is, again, doing respectably for what is a road car. Let's not forget, while it is on race tyres, this is a road car. This is the only road legal car running up here, and it would cross the line. At the end, it was a 317. It's a little bit down on some of the other cars. However, that is respectable, again, all things considered. So, the IDR had won round one, had actually won round one in very, very convincing fashion. I couldn't get close. I mean, I could run those cars up. They were all given 3 runs, with the fastest one being used. I could run those cars up a lot more times. Yes, I would probably get them a little bit faster. I'm not finding the amount of time that I would need. Not a hope in hell any of them are getting close to the IDR. So, it was off to the upgrade shop. Yes, we were going to... I was going to modify the cars and see what I could do. So I started with the Ultimate. I didn't actually touch the engine with this one. Honestly, I don't need any more power. I don't need more than 1,000 horsepower in this car because you get very, very diminishing returns. What I needed was grip. What I needed was bigger tyre widths. So I went for the maximums that we could get on it. I got some front downforce. I put the Forza front aero, well, the aero bits that I could on the car, just to try and give it as much of a chance as I possibly could. And I converted it, importantly, to all-wheel drive. It wasn't going to... Simply rear-wheel drive was not going to work on this course if we were going to hunt down the IDR. It just wasn't going to be enough. I needed to be able... I needed the security, basically, of jump on the throttle and absolutely fly. And sure enough, this thing rockets along when it comes to any acceleration zone. It's ridiculous. As we see it coming up here again, we've got 135 miles an hour. It's almost 140 this time around. On this road, 140. Like, that's almost the IDR's top speed that we're doing with this car on the Needle Pass, but the problem still persists. It doesn't have the grip. As we head around the final corner, I mean, we are quicker, I would hope so. We've got all-wheel drive, we've got more aero than we had before. It's still not going to do it. The Ultima still not going to be able to do it, and it wasn't even close. I say it wasn't even close. It was into the 14s, I think, in the end. But I came to the conclusion that wasn't going to be the way to go. Yes, they could have done some tuning and a little bit more tweaking, but that wasn't going to happen. So, where could we go next? The Maserati MC12 was the one. Now, I chose to build up this car specifically because I liked the way it drove the most. It was technically the fastest of the ones that had run so far, and I felt this stood the best of chances, shall we say. So, all-wheel drive swap, as big a tyres as we could get. 1,400 horsepower going on in this car. Yeah, that's a lot of power. That is an awful, awful lot of power going on in here. So we have a lot of acceleration. There is so much acceleration, in fact, that it rather caught me out on the first run, managing to get it slightly airborne over a crest where you don't normally get airborne and falling off the road. I got caught by the rocks and then stuck behind the barrier, but it was a completely and utterly bonkers car. You've got this is silly speed. Now, I do not very often race cars this fast, if ever, to be honest with you. I am much more of a fan of your sort of B-class, A-class cars to go racing with. I mean, this thing is utterly ridiculous. Now, I ran it a few times with just the modifications. I hadn't started going into tuning yet. I wanted to see what, with just the modifications on their own, the car would be able to do. Now, you continue with a nice handling Maserati. You do get perhaps a touch more understeer from the all-wheel drive system, but it's a small price to pay for being able to just jump on the throttle when you get out of these corners. Now, when I was running cars in A-class up here, being able to get to 100 miles an hour in over the course of the stage even was good going. We're again up towards that 130. This time Wise got on the brakes before we went over the crest. Again, you get the car turned in flies towards the next stage. Smidge wide, or let's call it smidge wide of the apex there. We're up to 145 miles an hour. This can carry more speed through the turns than the Ultima, which means when it gets to trying to put the power down, it can actually go to full throttle earlier than the Ultima, and hence why we are able to do some utterly ludicrous speeds down this stage. But again, look at the clock. It's going quickly. It's certainly the closest we had seen, but as we head into the final corner, the IDR is just about crossing the finish line now. It was faster. It was better. But it was not good enough. We fell to a 1:11.5. That's still 2 seconds off. That is still 2 seconds away. So, off I went back to the drawing board, sticking with the Maserati. I now sat about tuning the vehicle. Now, I'm not an expert tuner by any stretch of the imagination. However, I kind of applied whatever I knew to the car to try and get it faster. Increased the camber a little bit, gave it as much downforce as I possibly could. Did little bits here and little bits there. I tried different anti-roll bar settings, different suspension stiffnesses, front and rear. Basically, what I was doing was I want to get the front of the car to turn in. I'm not worried for once, and this is rare I say this, but for once I didn't really care so much about the back of the vehicle. I was doing everything I could to get the front end to turn in as well as possible, because that's the important bit here. That's where I was losing time to the IDR. So, after a little bit of tinkering around with the car, again, it was going quicker. I was starting to make some speed, and of course, the more I ran up the hill, the better I was going. We crossed the finish line. I'd shaved another second off of the time. We got it down to a 1:10.5. It was going in the right direction, but this is about where I hit, I say, my talent wall. Between my tuning and the car, I could not do much more. Now, I did actually try driving a 599 XX, maxed out with all-wheel drive, and that couldn't get close to the Maserati. I actually went and downloaded a couple of tunes for the Maserati to see if a tuner somewhere had built a better one. The ones I tried, though, were more built overall and didn't work going up this hill. To be fair, what I'm asking the car to do here is so specific that general X-Class maxed tunes perhaps don't really work or help. So, there we go. This would be my best run with the car, and I don't know where I could find much more speed with the vehicle. It was so on edge, and I was pleased with this run. Like, it was one of those runs when you're doing it like, yes, this is going to be fast. As we go flat out, it's about 145 we're getting on the brakes through this next corner. I mean, it's not just about the speed you get to, it's all the different aspects, all the different parts of the corners you need to be fast on. And I mean, this was going quickly. And again, I have to stress, this thing is insanely fast up this hill climb, but we head around the final corner. It was looking closer for the Maserati. As we launch it towards the line, it was just not enough. I must have run about 10 runs up here between a 1:09.8 and a 1:10.0, and I just couldn't get any more out of it. We're about half a second down. I got it to within half a second of the IDR, but that was pretty much where I hit the wall. I feel like if I stitched every single one of my perfect corners together, there may be 2 or 3 tenths in that. But trying to do that consistent, I just couldn't get the run with all of them spot on. I just couldn't do it. I just could not get the Maserati fast enough. So, despite the fact the IDR had 3 runs and its fastest a touch scruffy, completely untuned, beat just about everything. I tried my very best with the Maserati, and I felt the Maserati was my best option to try and do it. But I just hit that talent wall a fraction shy. It goes to show just how phenomenally fast that IDR. When you put that Volkswagen in the environment it wants to be in, dear God, that thing is ridiculously good. So there we go. That is going to be it for this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, a goodbye.